1 hour heating and air conditioning weather center. A chilly day ahead, sun and clouds, high near 50. Will be cold again overnight, partly cloudy, low 37. 39 at O'Hare. Next news at 8. Breaking news as it happens. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
This hourly segment is brought to you by HealthQuest Radio with Dr. David Kobaba. Every Saturday morning at 11, right here on AM 560, The Answer.
Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. Ohio Governor Mike DeWine, he's no sort of willy-nilly, let's keep things open. He's not, some Swedish politician that won't do a lockdown. He postponed the March 17th primary election in Ohio, even when Governor Pritzker didn't. But as of tomorrow, just about all retail in Ohio is reopened.
Wow.
Or it can be. It's up to the retailer, of course. Mike DeWine explaining over the weekend on Fox News Sunday with Chris Wallace that no choice is without risk. What an amazing concept. One that completely is not understood by so many Illinois denizens.
But by the end of this week, you will have reopened 90% of Ohio's economy. Why do you think you can do that safely, sir?
Well, it's really a risk no matter what we do. It's a risk if we don't do anything. It's a risk if we do this. What we have done is come up with the best practices for businesses to reopen. We put business people together with health people, had them come up with these best practices. And Chris, the economy is not going to open no matter what we do, whatever we order, unless people have confidence. And we're trying to give them confidence. But at the same time, we're telling them, look, the virus is still out there. It's still very, very dangerous. We have to keep the distancing. People should wear a mask, wash your hands. I mean, these are basic things that we have to do. We can't let up.
DeWine also went on to say, look, the White House guidelines, you're not, Wallace, you're not meeting the White House guidelines. Hey, some days the cases will go up a little bit, other days down. It's not the 14-day standard. So since we're using this 14-day, 28-day standard, it's bull jive. Okay.
And we're using the 28-day standard here in Illinois, by the way.
I understand. The 14-day and the 28-day standards we're using here, it's bull jive. The White House guidelines as the default position to keep things completely locked down. As DeWine said, nobody is abiding the White House guidelines. They're guidelines. And the reality is things don't go up at a neat 45-degree angle and come down at a neat 45-degree angle. There's all sorts of variables that you have to consider. But the ultimate consideration is, what do we see over the course of 3 or 4 weeks? What do we have in terms of healthcare capacity to deal with whatever may come? And that's the basis on which I'm making a decision for my state and what I see happening on the ground in my state. And different people will make different decisions. But the important point here is do not allow Pritzker and Lightfoot to get away with just relying on the White House guidelines and saying that's the end of the conversation. No, it's the beginning of the conversation.
And Governor J.B. was on CNN yesterday acting like a king.
We are being very careful. We have a 28-day period that we're in now during the month of May in which we're watching all these numbers, monitoring them. We've done a lot to make sure that we're keeping these numbers moving in the right direction, and we will not reopen unless we meet all of the standards that I've set for doing so.
And the standards that he set and what Lightfoot unveiled on Friday, they want hospitalizations down to 1,800. That's to move from phase 2 to phase 3. We're at about 4,800 hospitalizations. These goals can't not be reached. It does not make any sense. There's no rhyme or reason to it. And JB went on to say too, Dan, that we're going this alone.
You know that I have not been counting on the White House because there have been too many situations in which they've made promises not delivered.
Yeah,
very recently.
All right.
Yeah, but you have to hear Lori Lightfoot because she doesn't care about Chicagoans, Dan. She cares about what the world thinks of her, and she better get her act together.
I want our recovery to stand as a model for other cities around the world.
Who cares?
I want nothing less than for our efforts over the coming months to truly warrant a 5th star on our flag.
Oh my God.
Sure, this is rebuilding Chicago after the 1871 fire. That's what Lori Lightfoot's doing, is it?
She's trying to immortalize herself. She's sick. She's in way over her head. First time mayor, big time problem.
We're all global citizens, I understand. Here's something else, though, that both JB and Lori might want to consider. From the Wall Street Journal over the weekend, factory furloughs across the United States are becoming permanent closings. A sign of the heavy damage the coronavirus pandemic and shutdowns are exerting on the industrial economy. Makers of dishware in North Carolina, furniture foam in Oregon, cutting boards in Michigan are among companies closing factories in recent weeks. Caterpillar is considering closing plants in Germany. Boat and motorcycle maker Polaris plans to close a plant in Syracuse, Indiana. Tire maker Goodyear is planning to close a plant in Gadsden, Alabama, and so on and so forth. Eric Schmidt was on Face the Nation over the weekend. You remember him from being the CEO of Google and chairman of Alphabet. And he said something else that, and by the way, this is, Champagne Leninist, Eric Schmidt. I mean, he's not some, conservative, pro-entrepreneur-friendly dude. But he said something about so-called super cities, meaning big urban centers like, say, Chicago, that Lori Lightfoot's may want to perk up and listen to.
If you think of it as an employer, you have a bunch of employees, some of whom are dying to get back to the office, and some people who are afraid that if they go to the office, they will die. They're very concerned about their immunocompromised or what have you. So they're going to have to come up with flexible arrangements. So imagine that there are 3 or 4 people. One will go to the office, one will stay home, some will go to some local or near their town working environment. It will change the pattern. We've had this situation where people move to super cities in these incredibly concentrated ways. That will change in the next few years. You don't need to be in the super city in order to participate in the excitement of these super cities. The commission, by the way, is intending to work not just on the city, but also suburban and all the rural folks. We have to be sensitive to the fact that everybody has problems, everyone has concerns, and they're very different situations.
Indeed, they are. And one of the other problems, because things are interconnected. So super cities, you don't need to be in the super city in order to participate in the global economy, the global digital economy. So fewer people commuting to work. So tell me how you're going to make the finances of public transportation, which are a wreck.
Horrible.
How are you going to make those work? I mean, how many things can the city, the state, the federal government bail out? How much money can you print? How much borrowing can you do? How many systems can you prop up in spite of the lack of demand? For more on all this, we're pleased to be joined by Steve Rauschenberger, president of the Technology Manufacturing Association in Illinois here, former state senator and Republican gubernatorial candidate. Steve, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Well, good morning. What a bright way to start the day.
Well, I mean, mindless happy talk is for the politicians in this state, not here. So with respect to the manufacturing infrastructure, the entrepreneurial set in this state and in Chicago Metro, how do they look at what Pritzker and Lightfoot are doing, and how do they look at their future in Illinois by connection?
Well, Illinois' current public policy puts, I think, our manufacturing capacity at risk. All over the country and across the world, people are restarting their economies. And if Illinois manufacturers are not able to reconnect with their customer base and their supply chain, there's going to be alternatives found that are going to permanently damage the infrastructure of Illinois manufacturing and Illinois employment. We can't be an outlier. Regardless of what Lori Lightfoot thinks, manufacturing is different than retail or a restaurant or a bar. People aren't going to move to Tennessee necessarily to be able to get a cocktail. But if we're not allowed to go back to work and begin to produce, other people will pick up that slack, and that business may be gone forever.
Well, Steve, so it looks like you're phase 4 for manufacturing on both Lightfoot's plan and Pritzker's plan, and that's a big ask because we're, that's months from now, maybe even more than that.
Yeah.
What are you trying to do to get them to change the plan?
Well, the good news is they allowed essential manufacturing to continue.
Okay.
Of course, that's essential manufacturing without definition. and then encouraging employees to call in and rat out their employers if they don't believe their plant is essential. So we advise TMA members to contact their supply chain and get letters from the customers if their work was essential. So perhaps 65% of TMA members are operating at some level of capacity right now. But we're working with one arm tied behind our back, and to tell the manufacturing sector in the state of Illinois that you got to wait another 60 or 90 days before you can be at a competitive posture in a world where plans and bids are sent out on the internet and fractions of a penny determine where work's going to be done. It's not acceptable. We've come out in opposition to the governor's plan, pointing out that there's an awful lot that he needs to share with the people of the state of Illinois. We'd like to know who his experts are. Who on his expert panel understands industrial production? He's got some IDPH people that understand nursing homes apparently, but I don't know how many of them understand industrial hygiene or manufacturing or what goes on in a plant. I think we've got groups of talking heads who are maybe epidemiologists, but don't know a lot about the work the rest of us do in this economy. And both he and Lightfoot should be consulting people in the industry before they make, broad statements about what they're going to do.
Yeah, I'm not so sure the King's Hand knows much about nursing homes either. But with respect to reopening, what about going through the local units of government? We've talked to Keith Pekow, the mayor of Orland Park. They passed a resolution basically saying we cannot enforce this stay-at-home order that the governor issued. So here are our guidelines to our businesses for reopening, and do what makes sense and keeps your employees safe and keeps your customers safe and everybody feeling safe. But working through municipalities around the state as more and more are saying, come and get us. We're opting out of this. We're reopening.
Yeah, in the Alice Through the Looking Glass world of the state of Illinois, where nothing is what it seems or should be, that's a much better alternative than a one size or five sizes fit all for the state of Illinois and the governor's plan, or Lori Lightfoot's decision that she is banning sunshine and doesn't want people to go outside during the day. So those are better alternatives than what we have here, but what we really ought to have is an opening of the state with hygiene guidance from the experts, and allow smart people who care about their employees and employees who care about their health to go about their business. We're treating this...
Just on this score of the municipality, because some restaurants are sort of in the same position, is the problem with just relying on the local unit of government and their blessing that you have state licensure issues, which puts businesses at risk, and so they have exposure in terms of the operation of their business if the state wants to be punitive?
Yeah, I think there may be when you look at liquor licenses in particular, but I think for the most part, restaurants are regulated by their county public health department, not by the state of Illinois. So if they did resist and followed the dictates of their local government, I think for the most part, unless the governor wants to organize his stormtroopers. In the case of manufacturers, for the most part, we're not regulated by the state of Illinois. People have been cooperating voluntarily because, we all want this to be a good result. But for edicts to come out that don't make sense, it makes it harder and harder for Illinoisans to be compliant.
Well, Steve, of the manufacturers that are open right now, do they put plexiglass up in between employees? What are they doing to take, safety precautions?
Well, the variety of things that take place in Illinois manufacturing are so broad, it's pretty hard to generalize. Depending upon how close their workstations are, they can put up plexiglass, and some have. But for the most part, spacing in today's factories is much greater than social distancing. So we've been concentrating with our members on hand hygiene, making sure that they're socially distancing during breaks and during lunch, making sure that they're using the bathroom appropriately, so you don't, because most of them have larger bathrooms, that they don't have too many people in the bathroom at once, and dealing with the issues when they go home. So most of our members are providing masks for their employees, even though they've got social distancing. Some are putting up plexiglass. They've eliminated visitors to the factories, no tours, no salesmen, no outsiders in. And they're screening their employees and urging them to watch their temperature and watch for symptoms. So, there haven't been any outbreaks in factories in the state of Illinois where there's no hot spots among Illinois manufacturers that are manufacturing today. It's a low-risk environment. It's not like retail or restaurants where strangers come in or new people come in every hour on the hour. These are like extended families.
Well, also, I mean, isn't this all just absurd? Because look, I managed a grant program when I was in state government for a year, and I had the opportunity to visit 200 to 300 manufacturing facilities around Chicago Metro as part of the process for applying for grants for worker training and retraining. And all these manufacturing facilities, whether it's a job shop in Oak Grove or a bigger concern, Six Sigma and ISO 9000 and all these programs, these quality assurance programs they run through to give themselves standing with respect to customers, the cleanliness of these places, the safety of these places, the federal regulations they have to abide from the alphabet soup of agencies. The idea that J.B. Pritzker and Lori Lightfoot are going to make sure finally manufacturing facilities are clean and safe for their employees is so preposterous. It shouldn't even be a conversation.
Yes, yeah. Can you imagine a state agency or a city agency or a Cook County agency being able to produce product for the medical industry or for aerospace or for the space program? It's impossible. I mean, the precision with which these things are being done in the Illinois we should be hanging gold stars on the independent businessmen that put their livelihood at risk and give people great middle-class jobs that pay 40% more than retail. You're absolutely right. And the idea that there's a star chamber of people around Lori Lightfoot and J.B. Pritzker that are advising them, and they won't share who those people are, and they won't assure us that they've got anybody who understands business, whether it's retail or whether it's restaurant or whether it's manufacturing or distribution. One other thing I just have to mention, I find it unconscionable that the General Assembly is sheltering in place.
Yep.
We're asking the clerks to be at Home Depots. We're asking the cashier to be at the grocery store. We're asking the delivery guy to bring us our Amazon. And the state legislators, who should be providing public input and public hearings and guidance to the governor and the mayor, are sheltering in place because the Speaker of the House doesn't want to take political risks.
Yeah, I mean,
he's old. He's in that risk.
Well, it's all of them. It's all of them. They're displaying themselves for the cowards they have always been, and now you're seeing it in this moment. Absolutely. Yeah. Here's an idea. One of your manufacturing members. What if they, maybe to get in good graces with King JB of House Pritzker, they could engineer a harness that he could wear such that when he stands up, he doesn't break his legs. Have you thought about that? So let me ask you this. So with respect to manufacturing, and particularly the smaller to mid-sized companies, so what happens to those quote-unquote non-essential manufacturers if this persists? They're unable to do business for, say, another 30 days, another 60 days?
Well, it's hard to say, but what we're really worried about is the pieces and parts they make are in demand, and if they don't restart production and fill their customers' orders, their customers are going to go find someone else that can make that part or that piece or that assembly. And once they find that new customer, that new capacity, they may not come back. So, we could lose substantial 15, 20, 25% of the production that comes out of northern Illinois to other areas in the country or other parts of the world that wouldn't come back easily. We're already at a price disadvantage because our work comp's more expensive, our unemployment insurance is more expensive, our property taxes are more expensive, and we have a relatively high income tax. Now throw on top of it, 60 days of lost production and lost customer relationships. And what's worse is I don't have a member that can tell their supply chain with any confidence when they can be back in full production.
There's
no certainty.
He is Steve Rauschenberger, president of the Technology and Manufacturing Association, former state senator and Republican gubernatorial candidate. Steve, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
God bless. Be safe.
Yeah. Good hearing from you, Stephen. He joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
The stories you need to know to start your day. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
After 25 years of building websites for all kinds of companies and many different industries, AmericanEagle.com realized a well-designed website is also your best employee, bringing efficiency, revenue, production, showing up every day, giving above and beyond to increase your bottom line. That's what a website designed, developed, and hosted by AmericanEagle.com has brought to so many clients. An AmericanEagle.com website is a 24/7 branding exercise, building rapport and thus brand equity while you sleep. Companies like WeatherTech have relied on AmericanEagle.com's website design and development